we have 33 minutes until 10 o'clock. There are 16 exercises. Do the math. That's 2 minutes per exercise. And many of them won't even take that amount of time. What I did was I literally, I'm not going to lie to you, I went out to Google and I Googled DOM exercises. And the first set that came up that I liked, that's the first 13 that you have in here. Then I kept looking and I found another one that had 3 more sets. And that's the last 3 that you have in here. All right. So if we look as an example here, if I run this, DOM exercise number 1, style. Now, I know why it's not working. It's not working because of the way I'm running this. So let me get rid of that. And let me actually run it. All right, so notice it says DOM exercise 1. I click the style button. Pretty obvious what just happened, right? All right, when you take a look at it. But the point is that used JavaScript. All right. So it said when you click the button, call this. Change the font size to 24 point. Change the font family to Comic Sans MS. And change the color to green. So we are changing something as the program is running. All right. Question.
How come sometimes you need event listeners and sometimes you don't for a button?
The question was, how come sometimes you need event listeners and sometimes you don't? I would answer the question by saying you always need event listeners. But you're setting it up here by saying onClick equals. That's setting up the event listener right there. All right. We could have done that using a true event listener. All right. But the other thing is this is assuming that we're not using the older version. Like remember we checked for that attach event. We can't do that now. So this very well might not run on an older browser. All right. All right. Like I said, I'm just going to peruse my way through here. Number 2. Now, if you notice, I can type other stuff in here. All right. Hopefully I'll get your name right. Is that correct? All right. So I type that in, hit submit, boom. So what it's done is it's gone through and it's plucked out the first element that I put in there, and then it's plucked out the second element that I put in there. All right. And again, is that big a thing? Yeah, it is. Because what it's saying is in this exercise is that we can go through there and we can grab everything conceivably that the user has inputted. Now, we're not doing this because we don't do this until the next chapter. But as we're going through there, we could, if we wanted to, needed to, we could do validation. So if we were asking the age and you put none of your business, we could refuse to accept that. All right, because it's not a number. So this starts to show you ways that you can use things for validation. All right. Set the paragraph's background color. Well, one thing about this, you may or may not be ready for this, but notice what happens. And you might say, well, why did it do that? Why did it go all the way to the end of the line? Because that paragraph technically goes all the way till the end of the line. You could go in and manipulate that with CSS. So this red ended right after the period. The green ended right after the period. The blue ended right after the period. But by default, that's what it looks like. So the key thing there, I mean, what's important about that is if you look at this, we are going in the name of the paragraph, dot, style, dot. That could be anything you wanted. All right? So in other words, we could say para1 dot style dot. We could come in here and change the font size or the font family. Remember that if we do this and if we decide that what we're going to put in here is font family, remember this? We can't do that, right? We cannot say this. That won't work. We have to do it like this. And we have to do it like this because when JavaScript sees a minus sign, it thinks subtraction. It automatically puts itself into arithmetic mode. So you've got to do it like this. All right? Now, this one, if we look at this, because the result's going to look kind of weird, but if we look at this one, what are we doing? We're grabbing different things off of that hyperlink. So what we want is we want the href attribute. Well, what's the href attribute? It should be something like www.rankin.edu. It should be something like that. All right? We want the language that's being used, probably English. We want the relationship. And that should have said target, not tag it, but that's my fault. All right? That says target, and that's the one that matters. And here we've got the value of the type attribute. So if we run this one, and we click here, notice what we... Oh, that was neat. Oh, I didn't want to actually click on the link. That was my fault. So if we run this one and we click here, there's the value of the href. All right. It says we're using English. All right. Don't worry about the rel no follow. Blank means open it in a brand new window. All right. The type we're using is HTML. Okay. So again, you start to see how you can use the stuff that's in here for a lot of ways that it can be used. One way is to retrieve things, and another way is to set things. You've seen both already. All right. Here's an example. If you look right here, we've got a table, and when I click the button, it's going to insert a new row. Okay. Now the problem is the way that it's set up right now, there's hardly any code in it. So every time I click this, it's going to keep inserting that row, which my daughter Chloe would like, but you get the idea. So if you wanted to change that, you'd have to manipulate it programmatically. Or if you wanted to only allow one row to be inserted, you'd have to change that programmatically. But if we look at the code for this, all right, this is basically saying we want to add that. So we're telling it to come in here and insert 2 new cells, all right, from wherever we are. Insert, and then fill them up with values. There's a few examples that are in here that actually work with tables. Notice here it says change content. Again, I think you'd all agree the program's running. So it says change content. All right, what do I want to change? I want to go to row 1, and I want to go to cell 0, and I want to change that from Jeff to Jeffrey Paul Scott. And you can see how it's been changed. All right. So again, I was able to go in and dynamically, as the program was running, change the contents of one of the elements that's in there. And as you see, when you look in here, the more you want to do, the more text you're going to have to essentially write. But we're saying in here, okay, tell me what row you want to change. Tell me what column you want to change. Tell me what you want to change it to, and then do it. All right? Again, not to be funny, this isn't rocket science. A lot of it becomes very, very similar and very much just memorizing or remembering what routine to call. Here creates a table. It says, okay, I'm going to create a table for you. How many rows do you want? 6. How many columns do you want? 3. And it creates it for you. So again, this is another example. Now, I put information in here, but you wouldn't have to. Or I could ask a user information and then create a table for them based on the information that they'd provided. Here, notice select and remove. Okay, I've got red, green, white, and black. Let's get rid of white. It's gone. Let's get rid of green. It's gone. Let's get rid of black. It's gone. Well, there. Now they're all gone. So again, while the program is running, we have selectively been able to remove everything we wanted to. Okay? Now, if this was something, for instance, if this was a list of states, you could set it up so that at the top it said enter a state. And maybe you weren't going to allow the user to actually remove that one. All right, as an example. This will give you a count, and it will output all of the items. So this is iterating its way through a list and telling you how many things you have in it. All right. The next one, I took this verbatim out of that article. It's a thing on creating a sphere, and it doesn't work. I don't know why, but it doesn't, so I'm just going to skip that one. All right. Here, this is really, if you look on the screen, this is really, really simplistic. But what do we have? Now we're using a button here, but this is a really crude little slideshow that's being done. Now what you probably want to do if you were doing that is you probably want to go in there, and this is just the ones that the author told you to use. But I would go out to a site like makeathumbnail.com to make sure that the images were all the same size. There are ways that you can create things and make them all the same size. All right? Sometimes it's harder using some packages than others. And it just reminded me, again, you may or may not care about this, but if you are ever working and you want to do your own website, you want it to look really professional. You may or may not have heard of this product, but there's a product out there that's called GIMP. It's free. And as it says, it's an image manipulation program. It's not perfect, but it's free. And if you do want to go in and you want to work with all your images to try to make them a standard size or whatever, GIMP's not a bad program to use. The Adobe products work much better, but they're not free. With some of the Adobe products, you can get a free 30-day trial, all right, but after that, they're not free. Here's another one. If you look on the screen, it says on mouse over. Notice what happens on the screen. If you look up on the screen, you'll notice several words in there are bolded in black. When I mouse over the hyperlink, they turn red. Again, not that that's that big a thing, but it's showing you an example of an on mouse over and an on mouse out. Here, this one does work if you look on the screen. Notice my width and my height. All right. See how they've changed? So this is a totally interactive program. And the same thing with height. Oops. Well, it should be. I don't know why it's not. There it goes. All right. Just a couple more. These last three examples, these are from an IBM DOM tutorial. And what I did with all these is I put their stuff in there as comments. So you can look through it, and it shows you how you can iterate your way through there. All right? And there is an alert, and it shows you. So, like I said, these, if you get a chance to look at them, this is total node manipulation. All right? Some of it is just showing you certain things, so it's a get element by ID, first child, last child, etc., first sibling, next sibling, or last sibling, etc. All right? And some of the stuff that's in here is actually letting you do a little bit of manipulation. Not much, but a little bit. All right? As you run through. And those are the last three examples that are in here. So I got done even a lot faster than I thought I would. So, again, last thing. Yeah, that's not done, but it almost is. All right. That tomorrow will be lab the entire period. All right, I'm just going to take for granted that I'm not going to get a hold of Jeremy. So if you want to take the test, either if you haven't taken it before or you want to retake it tomorrow, all right, all I'm going to ask is that if you retake it tomorrow, in fact, you don't even have to do that. I still have a copy of your original. So if you just want to grab that original and if you say, well, can you tell us what we did wrong? I think in most cases, if you did something wrong, you know what you did wrong. With most of you who got less than 50, you left stuff out. You might have put a comment in there that says, I would do this, but you didn't do it. All right, so you'll have 4 more hours to try to get half those points back. And again, if it turns out that only the person who didn't take the test yet takes it and the other ones don't, that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. All right? And that'll be all period, and you already know what we're doing Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. Questions? All right, so the last 2 hours plus is yours.